Welcome to Butter. So this is a platform. I often think of it as like a Zoom alternative, right? Things that you would do on Zoom, you can also host on Butter. And as a facilitator, as somebody who's been facilitating online for the last few years, there are a lot of things that I like about Zoom. People know it. I don't have to introduce it to almost anybody anymore. The features are really basic. It's very stable. It's very light. Light as in like you don't need a new computer to run it, at least not a particularly new computer to run it. And those are things that I really like about Zoom. But there are things that as a facilitator, as somebody who teaches and leads online, that are really clunky about Zoom. And those things, some of those things are incredibly easy on Butter. And I think make it a good enough reason to actually switch, create a little bit of a higher barrier to entry for people, and have people try this new platform out. So today I want to show you a few of those things and just give you a quick tour and overview so that you can understand, like, is this a platform worth exploring, checking out, or even using for your sessions online. So you might be noticing up in the corner that there's this thing that says reflection up here. And that's because I just finished a workshop in Butter and the timer was still going. So let me give you a little tour of Butter as a facilitator. So the first thing is that this is what it looks like when you're the only one in the room. When there are more people, you're going to be in a gallery view that we're kind of used to in Zoom. Up at the top here, we have our agenda. So one thing that's really cool is that you can have your agenda with timings and with notes. Right now, this doesn't have it's a little hard to read the notes because there's no spacing in there, but hopefully they will update that soon. So when I'm working through a facilitation, oftentimes I can't really see if I'm behind. And so I like the timer. I like that it's subtle and that I can see the time. I can set it so that my participants can or can't, which is a neat feature. So there's a lot of things in Butter that are pretty similar to Zoom. So we've got chat. One of the differences in Butter is that you can do GIFs. I find that a little overwhelming personally, like to have this continuously on loop, but it is neat that you can do that. So you can do that. You have this option for private notes, which I really like. This is something that no one else will be able to see when it's just for yourself to reflect throughout the time. There's this button called Q. So instead of the raise hand feature in Zoom, they have this thing where you can say, I have a comment, I have a question, I have an idea. And when you hit that, the queue, the kind of list of participants will start up here and everyone can see that, which is a neat way to keep track of kind of who has a question about what, question or comment, that sort of thing. There is reactions in Butter. So it's a little bit, I would say like one of its defining features is that it is more fun looking than Zoom. Zoom looks very corporate. It is very corporate. And I would say that Butter has a bit more of a lighthearted energy around it. So there's a bunch of these reactions when you're in a session and a bunch of people hit the same reaction at the same time, it will make a big reaction on the screen. It's a little like video game streaming inspired, which is okay. It's sometimes I find it distracting. The more I've gotten used to it, the more I've ended up liking it. So there's screen share, which is pretty normal. There's spotlight mode. I do find this spotlight mode pretty simple to use. A lot of Butter is drag and drop. So if I had other people in here, I would be able to drag them into the spotlight and you can search for their name. Super handy if you have a bunch of people. So that's really neat and easy. So I would say there's a couple of defining features of Butter that make it something that I would want to use instead of Zoom. So I would say there are two big ones for me. One is that you can use an app, you can use MIRO, which is a digital whiteboard tool, right in Butter without anyone having to leave or like open a tab outside of it. So everybody's video on the side was there, but we were all interacting with that Miro board at the same time. And if I was doing that on Zoom, we would have to have the Zoom open and a tab in Chrome or our browser open in order to see both. And I find that window management is not something that people are particularly good at. Like understanding like, oh, I can drag the Zoom over here and it's just so nice to have it built in and have it integrated. If you're like, but doesn't Zoom have apps? Zoom does have apps, but they don't work unless everyone has downloaded it, which is just a nightmare. So if you're working with people who aren't all within the same organization. So what's awesome about Butter is no one has to have Miro downloaded. It's just integrated straight into the software, which is great. So Miro boards, that's one reason I really love Butter. Using that simultaneously. The other is that you can pre-set up breakout rooms, like multiple different iterations of breakout rooms, which is really nice. So let's say I want to do a breakout room of pairs, and then I want to do small groups of 4 people, and then I want people to have the option of which group to go into after that. I can set all of those up ahead of time in my agenda. So in the session that I just led, for our connection piece, when we got to that piece, we can actually flip to it. This is the breakout room, and it was set up for people to go into pairs. And it was just going to automatically assign people of, ideally in pairs. If there was needed to be a triad, there would be a triad. So that's really cool. And then later in the agenda, where I had subcommittees, this was set up completely differently, where instead of putting people into pairs, I had 3 rooms that were designated. So I had a room where we were going to talk about online facilitation, a session or a room we were going to talk about hybrid, and a room where we were going to talk about in person. So not only was I able to set up a separate room, like a different setup of breakout rooms than my earlier one and have that ready to go, which is nice in and of itself. But the best thing is that I was able to assign each of those rooms a specific Google Doc. So instead of having to be like, okay, room 1, what I would have done in Zoom is like room 1, here's your document, room 2, here's your document, and hoped everybody clicked the one that they needed. In this session, when people got into their breakout rooms, a Google Doc just opened in their window. So let's see if I can make that happen right here. Yeah, so this is what it looked like when they arrived in their breakout room. They just had the Google Doc, it opened automatically. Their group members would have been on the side here below my camera, and everybody could have worked on this right away. And this is what the hybrids group would have looked like. And if I had been in the in-person group, they would have arrived and the in-person document would have been there. So that is so helpful if you want people to be in different rooms working on different documents. You can do that with Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, or with different Miro documents. And I just think that makes it so much easier. And like, even if that was the only reason, like that might be a good enough reason to actually like have people work in Butter. And again, they don't have to have Google Docs in their browser and be looking at Zoom. It's all integrated right into the program. So that is super, super helpful. And we used that today, and it was like so smooth. People were like, "Oh wow, it just worked." So that is awesome. Hey, so I was about to finish recording this video, and then I forgot to mention that there is 2 key features in Butter involving breakout rooms that are so helpful, and I wanted to make sure to include in this video. So the first is that you can observe your groups without joining them when they're in the breakout rooms. So when folks are in breakout rooms, you can press this button that says observe, and it's kind of like a one-way mirror where you can see and hear them, but they cannot see and hear you. They do get a little notification letting them know that you are observing. We found out today that that is not particularly obvious. So if you do want to make sure that people know, just flag that for them ahead of time. But that's a really handy feature to be able to kind of like see where the pace of conversation is. It's sort of like walking around the room, right? And getting a sense of where your groups are. You can do that really quickly from the breakout overview page on Butter. The other thing that's really handy is you can send individual messages into the breakout rooms. So if you observe something and you're like, oh, I want to let them know like, hey, you need to move on to the next thing, but without joining the room, you can actually send individual messages into the breakout rooms, and you can do a broadcast to all of them, which you can do in Zoom as well. So those are the things I wanted to make sure to mention. And I think that's going to wrap up our review of Butter for now. I also have a video working in my brain, which would walk you through how to build the agenda in Butter. So if you're interested in that video, please let us know below if you'd like to see our agenda building video, and we will get that working in the background. If you got something out of this video, enjoyed it, thinking about checking out Butter, give us a like down below, and of course, let us know what questions you have about facilitating in Butter. Happy to answer. We've done a good few facilitations in there now, so we're getting pretty comfortable with the platform. Okay, that's going to do it for us and for me today. If you want to see more videos about technology for facilitators, teachers, or educators, or just get general facilitation advice, tips, and tools, please subscribe to the channel. That is what we do here, and more videos will be coming your way.